Super Mario 64, the launch title of the Nintendo 64 in 1996 and the Nintendo DS in 2004. In fact, it is the last Super Mario launch title on the Nintendo system to date. Yes, Odyssey was close, but got knocked down from that honor by Zelda Breath of the Wild. The same goes in the sales department. Anyhow, 2021 marks the 25th anniversary of the launch of Super Mario 64 for the Nintendo 64, and it is about time that Super Mario 64 joined the gang of early 3D platformer stars Crash and Spyro and get an HD remake on the Nintendo Switch. And it should happen before Crash Bandicoot 4's It's About Time get its Switch port. No doubt, Mario has been waiting too long, and though the original Mario 64 can be bought used for the N64 and digitally through the Wii U Virtual Console plus for DS and 3DS, through the Super Mario 64 DS remake, we need a modern reimagination of Peach's castle, grounds, and painting levels. And in this video we'll do exactly that, exploring why a Super Mario 64 remake would be the most important remake ever made by Nintendo. It would be tempting to say of all time, but Final Fantasy VII Remake exists, so actually, let's do this. Sound off in the comments below. Do you think the Final Fantasy VII Remake games or Super Mario 64 HD Remake will be the most important remake of all time? Reply by writing FF7 or SM64. Also be sure to like this video, and if you haven't already, subscribe for more videos on the potential 35th anniversary Super Mario remasters, and press that notification bell and again for all notifications to not miss any upcoming videos.
Hello to all my friends at Commonwealth Realm. It's me, Mario. Woohoo! Mamma mia, you're number one. Here we go!
Super Mario 64, the ultimate timeless classic that definitely aged better than the original Final Fantasy VII. The first true open 3D platformer would change gaming forever, much like the original Super Mario Bros. Did back in the 1980s. The game has already received a good remake with clunky controls, so if you want to play it through the Wii U Virtual Console, as the DS stylus and D-pad controls for camera movement are a mess. And that is the thing about Super Mario 64, it hasn't received a remake that rivals the quality of the original. After all, the first and only remake so far of this game is 16 years old as of 2020. Yes, and also in less than 200p. Graphically speaking, Super Mario 64 has definitely aged better than Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation, but that isn't exactly the greatest compliment you can give someone. Luckily, this state of matters could change with the Nintendo Switch and the 25th anniversary of the game rapidly approaching. So what is the number one priority to fix in Super Mario 64? The camera. Oh, the camera. There's not a single more recognizable flaw in a Nintendo game than it, well, maybe with the exception of the car in Mario Party 9 and 10. No doubt, this flaw is a result of the game being the definition of 3D platformer infancy. At the same time, the awful camera controls are also part of the retro charm and gameplay of Super Mario 64. A latitude, the master of the camera should be preserved, at least to some extent, as an option for speedrunners and the fans that just want to experience Super Mario 64 the way that they remember it, but in HD. Obviously, this could pose a dilemma for a remake, as fixing the camera and then asking for a classical camera mode might be a too tall order, and I wouldn't be surprised if we end up in another Final Fantasy VII Remake debacle. What do I mean by that? Well, purists who want the exact same experience but in HD, and later newcomers who simply want to play another 3D Mario game but with all the gameplay refinements found in Super Mario Odyssey. You know, full camera control with the right analog stick, super accurate running and jumping controls. As such, it is probably that Nintendo might end up doing the same thing that Square did with Final Fantasy VII Remake. In their case, it was ditching turn-based combat in favor of a real-time combat with command system. While in Super Mario 64 HD's case, it would be to simply bring Super Mario 64's camera and controls to the 21st century. Actually, that is a good metaphor, as the dual analog stick became a staple first during the PlayStation 2, Xbox and GameCube generation. Though back to the point, as what did Final Fantasy VII Remake and the Resident Evil 2 remake succeed in more than anything? Feeling like a fresh experience, and even for veterans giving the impression that they are playing a brand new game. Final Fantasy VII Remake in particular is not considered much of a remake in this case, but more of a reimagination, much like A Link Between Worlds was to A Link to the Past. Most of the same locations, but with a brand new feel, and a few new areas which greatly expand the freedom of exploration and offer new challenges. A remake, unlike a remaster, is supposed to reinvent, and that should be the case with Super Mario 64 HD, as the scale and ambition of Super Mario 64 had to be severely downgraded in the limited space on Nintendo 64 cartridges back in 1994 and 1995. Some of these ideas, like playable Luigi, more mini-games and challenges, were finally realized in the Super Mario 64 DS remake. And some of these, like playable Luigi, Yoshi and Wario, and extra stars should also be part of an HD remake. In fact, they should just be the beginning, as Super Mario 64 DS wasn't in widescreen, didn't include any of the many scrapped paintings and areas from the development stage, and as stated by some critics back in 2004, lacked enough new content. 2020, or more so 2021 if the next new 3D Mario game is slated for 2022 rather than 2021, is the perfect opportunity to make up for it and also bring something using the Odyssey engine before a sequel. Personally, to me, and yes, this is a spoiler warning, if you haven't beaten Super Mario Odyssey then please click away, as we will be spoiling one of the kingdoms of the post-game in the next 5 seconds. Just so you know, you have been warned. One of Super Mario Odyssey's greatest kingdoms was one big nostalgia trip back to the Mushroom Kingdom of Super Mario 64, and to anyone arguing that it wasn't, the set of Mario 64, the courtyard in 64-bit graphics and stars rather than moons is proof enough. Oh, and capturable Yoshi, who actually was more useful than in the original Super Mario 64. But only slightly. Anyhow, the Mushroom Kingdom in Super Mario Odyssey felt like a massive tease of a future Super Mario 64 HD remake, which takes full advantage of this engine. Like, come on, we even have multiple big paintings like in Super Mario 64 in this kingdom. Yes, this post-game kingdom can pretty much be ported straight into the Super Mario 64 HD remake. And the only things missing are really the majority of the interiors of Peach's castle, the different floors, the paintings within the different chambers, the boss chambers, and so on. So, to finish off this video, let's recap how to create a Nintendo remake for the new decade. 1080p, 60 frames per second. The Mario team pulled this brilliantly off with Super Mario Odyssey, so Super Mario 64 remade should be no problem on the performance front. Next is a fixed dual analog camera and controls, just like in Super Mario Odyssey. You want to be able to sell this as another Super Mario Odyssey experience, so make it feel like it, apart from the capture and throw mechanic. But luckily, to replace one of those, we have the punch. Finally, bring the already existing extras and playable characters from the Super Mario 64 DS remake, and then throw in 3 or 4 of the scrap paintings from the N64 development with their own set of star missions, and simply call it a day. If Nintendo started development of this remake, if it's coming to fruition, using the Odyssey engine, then the remake should, in the second half of 2020, be nearing completion for a late Mario 35th anniversary release, or at least be ready for the 25th anniversary of Super Mario 64. A remake for Nintendo to show Activision and even Capcom and Square Enix how it's done and turn Super Mario 64 for its masterpiece HD remake immortal. Another re-release through N64, Nintendo Switch Online, and slight remaster will be underwhelming in the golden era of video game remakes. So just as I asked in the beginning, do you think the Final Fantasy VII remake games or a Super Mario 64 HD remake will be the most important remake to date? Reply by writing FF7 or SM64 below. Plus, if you haven't already, leave a like, subscribe, press that shiny notification bell, and again for all notifications. We're now pushing for 300,000 subscribers, so let's get them. Finally, a big thanks to our patrons, and please enjoy one or both of these 2 awesome videos.